You know, we all see planes taking off and landing, but have you ever thought about what's happening right underneath them? On the ground, there's this hidden world with a completely different set of rules. We're talking about the airport tarmac, and let me tell you, it's one of the highest stakes driving environments on the planet. One wrong turn can be absolutely devastating. So how do you drive in a place like that? Let's get into it.
And yeah, the stakes could not be higher. This is what it looks like when things go wrong. A collision between a vehicle and an airplane isn't just a fender bender. It can be a full-blown catastrophe. And that's exactly why the rules we're about to go over are so incredibly strict.
The official term for this kind of screw-up is a runway incursion. The FAA basically defines it as any time a person, a vehicle, or another plane is in the landing and takeoff area when they have absolutely no business being there. This is the single biggest problem that every airport safety plan is designed to prevent. Now here's something that might surprise you. You'd think most of these incidents would be plane-on-plane issues, right? But get this, vehicles and pedestrians on the ground account for 20%, a full 1/5 of all runway incursions. That's a huge number, and it's why understanding these ground rules is so absolutely critical.
Okay, so how do you stop these things from happening? Well, it all starts with learning to read your surroundings. The surface of an airport has its own unique language, a language of signs, markings, and lights. Let's start with the most basic rule of all.
The number one most fundamental thing to know is the color code. It's super simple, but it's crucial. If the lines painted on the pavement are white, you are dealing with a runway. That's for landing and taking off. If the lines are yellow, you're on a taxiway. Think of those as the roads that get everyone around. So, white is for flight, yellow is for taxiing.
Now, to make things easier, the FAA came up with a couple of really catchy phrases to help drivers remember the signs. The first one you got to know is black square, you're there. So what does that look like?
Here you go. See this sign? It's got a black background with a yellow letter. This is a location sign. It tells you exactly where you are. In this case, you are on Taxiway Alpha. These black signs are basically the "you are here" marker on the airport map.
All right, so if black tells you where you are, how do you know where you're going? For that, we've got our second little rhyme. Yellow array leads the way. And this is what a direction sign looks like. Notice it's the opposite, a yellow background with black letters and an arrow. These are your road signs, pointing you towards your destination. So to recap, black tells you where you are, yellow tells you where to go. Simple. So what about at night or in really bad weather? That's when the lights take over. And it's another simple color code. Blue lights show you the edges of the taxiways. They're your lane markers. Green lights run right down the center line of the taxiway. And white lights, well, those outline the edges of the runway, giving you a bright, clear warning that you're near the supercritical area. Okay, so now we know the basic language of the airfield. Let's put it to use in the most controlled part of the entire airport. This is what's officially called the movement area.
The movement area is really just all the runways and taxiways. The second your vehicle enters this zone, everything changes. You're not just a driver anymore, you are officially part of the air traffic system, and that means you are under the direct authority of Air Traffic Control, or ATC. You don't move an inch without their okay.
So in this incredibly complex maze, how do you keep track of where you are? You use one of these, an official airport diagram. This is your map, your guide, your lifeline. The FAA requires that every single vehicle in the movement area has a current one of these handy at all times. Getting lost out here is just not an option.
And that brings us to what is maybe the most critical piece of this whole safety puzzle. It's not just about reading signs. It's about having a constant, crystal clear conversation with the people up in the tower who are directing all this traffic. So let me ask you a question. With all these moving parts, massive airplanes, fuel trucks, baggage carts, you name it, what do you think is the single most dangerous, most important spot on the entire airfield?
It's right here. This boundary is called the runway holding position. This is the line in the sand. It is the airport's ultimate, absolute stop sign. It separates the taxiways from the active runway, where a 500,000-pound aircraft could be touching down at over 150 miles per hour.
And because it is so unbelievably critical, they don't just give you one warning, they give you three. First, you've got the painted markings right on the pavement. See those two solid yellow lines? Think of them as a wall. Second, you've got the physical sign, big, red, and impossible to miss. And finally, just in case, there are flashing yellow lights embedded in the pavement.
There is absolutely no excuse for accidentally crossing this boundary. And the rule, pulled directly from the FAA guide, could not be more clear. You never cross this line unless an air traffic controller has given you a direct, explicit instruction to do so. Not because you think it's clear, not because you're in a hurry. Never.
Now, this procedure is a little different depending on the kind of airport. At big airports with a control tower, you have to get that clear radio permission from ATC. But what about at smaller, non-towered airports? Well, there, the responsibility shifts completely to you. You have to stop, look both ways for aircraft, listen, and then get on the common radio frequency and announce exactly what you're about to do for any pilots in the area.
You know, all these signs, all these lights, and all these rules are really just tools. Their one and only purpose is to build something inside the driver's mind, and that one thing is situational awareness.
Situational awareness is just a fancy term for knowing what's going on. It means you know exactly where you are on the airfield, how that relates to where you're going, and what all the other vehicles and aircraft around you are doing. It's about having that constant 3D mental map of the entire operation.
And it really all comes down to 3 basic actionable steps. 1. Understand and follow every single instruction from ATC to the letter. 2. Constantly check your airport diagram to confirm your position. And 3. Know what every single marking, sign, and light means. If you get those 3 things right, you've built a solid foundation for safety.
So in the end, what you have is this incredibly complex system, all designed with one goal: to prevent a disaster. But like any system, it has a single point of failure: the person behind the wheel. The whole thing only works if you are paying 100% attention. So the final question really is, are you?